Come on.
Magandang araw mga kasamahan sa Kilusang Kooperatiba. Meron na naman po kami na piling talakayin sa panahon na ito na naaayon talaga sa pinag-uusapan ng sektor ngayon, ang guidelines governing the organization and recognition of a National Alliance of Cooperatives o NAC, Sectoral Apex Organization or SAO, and Regional Clustered Organization or RCOs. Ito po ay pinag-uusapan ngayon kung paano buuhin ang mga organisasyon na ito dahil ito ay mandated sa CDA na buuhin para sa pag-implement ng Republic Act 11364. Meron pong samahan ng mga kooperatiba that is accusing CDA that CDA is an anti-NAC. Ito po ay hindi totoo dahil sa katotohanan, ang lahat ng cluster heads ay busy po sa pagtatayo ng Sectoral Apex Organization para mabuo na ang tinatawag na National Alliance of Cooperatives. So ipapakita lang natin dito ang guidelines para po sa kaalaman ng mga federations, ng mga unions at saka mga primaries kung paano ba binubuo ito. Nandito po ang director natin sa CSF na si Atty. Mona para po paliwanagan kayo at hindi na haka-haka ang ating naririnig o yung mga chismis na ngayon maririnig natin sa kung saan-saan na ang pagbubuo ay ganito, dapat ganito, dapat ganito. Hindi na po. Straight coming from CDA ay malalaman ninyo kung paano ito buuhin. Makinig lang po kayo mabuti sa presentation at kung meron po kayong katanungan, pwede din po na inyong isulat o i-comment doon sa comment section para po ito ay aming matutugunan kaagad. Pakikinggan po natin si Atty. Mona.
A pleasant morning and beautiful day to one and all. Sending you our warm hugs and regards. Indeed, we are more than happy to be with you all today through this virtual General Assembly of not just one, not just two, but all of the sectors comprising the human services cluster of cooperatives. We therefore take this opportunity to bring to your attention, to keep you informed of the most recent issuances of the CDA, which are very much of interest to you. In an effort to keep you posted of the said recent issuances, ASEC Lac Paradillo deemed it proper to likewise share with you today this interesting memorandum circular, which is Memorandum Circular number 2020-28, titled Guidelines Governing the Organization and Recognition of a National Alliance of Cooperatives, or the so-called NAC, Sectoral Apex Organizations, or the SAOs, and Regional Clustered Organizations, or the RCOs. In other words, this is the Memorandum Circular that provides for the guidelines in the organization and recognition of the cited organizations. Now, the said memorandum circular is vividly issued based on the following provisions of the RA number 11364, or the amended charter of the CDA, and its implementing rules and regulations. These guidelines is issued to provide operational details to these particular provisions of the law and the IRR in order to have an effective and proper implementation of the law and its IRR. So first to mention is the provision on the power of the CDA to formulate and develop guidelines, rules, standards, regulations, and circulars to implement the law and its IRR in consultation with the cooperative sector and other concerned institutions. This is likewise called as the rule-making power of the authority, which is expressly vested under the law. Okay. Next basis in the issuance of this memorandum circular is the provision of the law on the establishment of a partnership between and among, the power of the CDA to recognize the sectoral apex organizations and a national alliance. These are consultative bodies or coordinating bodies representing all types and categories of cooperatives, where the CDA is authorized to give recognition to them the moment they are established and organized. Another basis of the said memorandum circular is the provision of the law on the establishment of a partnership between and among the CDA, the cooperative sector, and the Atty, which would lead to the establishment and recognition of the apex organizations and a national alliance of cooperatives. And the last one is the entire Rule 9 of the Rules and Regulations implementing the RA number 11364. This is the rule that is wholly devoted for the recognition, for the rules on the recognition of regional clustered organizations, sectoral apex organizations, and the National Alliance of Cooperatives. Okay. So before we'll tackle each important provision of the said memorandum circular, let us first try to know the definition of the following important terms used in the said memorandum circular. So, talking about the National Alliance of Cooperatives, ano po ba itong tinatawag nating National Alliance of Cooperatives or NAC? So, I guess this is novel to each and every one of us, no? So, in the exercise of the CDA's rule-making authority and being the agency tasked to implement, of course, its own charter, the said definition is being provided after a consultation had been done with the cooperative sector, no? So this refers to a recognized association of sectoral apex organizations or SAOs in the national level, acting as the primary advocacy and overall consultative and coordinating body for national issues and concerns of cooperatives. Next, please. What about the sectoral apex organization or the SAO? So under this memorandum circular, the said term is defined as a recognized association of regional clustered organizations, including tertiary cooperatives and union of cooperatives operating nationwide, to serve as consultative body in the national level on issues and concerns affecting the respective clusters. So maybe I could add some more information relating to each of the said terms in the succeeding slides. Okay. The Regional Clustered Organization or the RCO. This refers to a recognized association of primary, secondary, and tertiary cooperatives, as well as union of cooperatives belonging to a specific cluster operating in the region. The purpose of which is again to serve as a consultative body of cooperatives in the regional level. Now, the cluster of cooperatives. So, it is only under this amended charter of the CDA that the various sectors of co-ops have been clusterized, such that each of the members of the board of directors of the CDA will be appointed by the president to head each of the following cluster of cooperatives. So this cluster of cooperatives refers to a group of duly registered cooperatives with products and services under the following grouping. So the law provides for 6 clusters of cooperatives. First, there is the credit and financial services, banking, credit surety fund, and insurance cluster of cooperatives. Second, consumers, marketing, producers, and logistics. Third, human services, your own cluster, the cluster where you all belong, which includes housing, workers, and labor service. 4, education and advocacy. 5th, agriculture, agrarian, aquaculture, farmers, dairy, and fisher folk. And the 6th one refers to the public utilities, which include electricity, water, communications, and transport cooperatives. So these are the clusters of co-ops defined and enumerated under the law. Okay. There is also this new term introduced in the law and is explained here in this memorandum circular, and that is the Sectoral Union of Cooperatives. When we say Sectoral Union of Cooperatives, it merely refers to a union catering to the interests and welfare of a particular sector of registered cooperatives and or federations at the city, provincial, regional, and national levels. Okay, so let's start off with the National Alliance of Cooperatives. So what is the composition of this organization? No? So it shall be composed of representatives from the sectoral apex organization. So to determine how many representatives will be sent by each of the sectoral apex organizations to sit or to comprise the membership of the National Alliance of Co-ops, this memorandum circular clearly states that each SAO shall be represented by not more than 3 representatives. The first 2, however, shall serve as permanent members, while the other one shall be an alternate representative. So, based on this composition of the National Alliance of Cooperatives, we could therefore say that the National Alliance of Cooperatives is indeed the highest organization of co-ops that will be recognized by the CDA. And its operation will be national in scope and will take care of cooperative issues of national concern. Next, please. So the following are the functions of the National Alliance of Cooperatives. Okay. First is to participate in the formulation and monitoring of the implementation of the Cooperative Development Plan at the national level. So here, the National Alliance of Cooperatives will not only take part in the formulation of the Cooperative Development Plan, but will likewise take part in the monitoring of the enforcement or implementation of the said Cooperative Development Plan. Okay. Another function is to promote and uphold the cooperative principles and values. This function, however, is not only unique to or peculiar to that of the National Alliance of Cooperatives, as each and every cooperative that is organized and registered with the CDA is indeed mandated to promote and uphold cooperative principles and values. So with more reason and much more is expected to that of the National Alliance of Cooperatives to uphold the cooperative principles and values. Okay, the third one is to conduct forums, consultations, and such other activities necessary in the promotion of their advocacies and to collect reasonable fees, therefore, as may be permitted by the authority. Since ito ng National Alliance of Cooperatives, sinasabi nga natin, ito ay coordinating and consultative body ng co-op sa national level and will take care of co-op issues and concerns na national ang kanyang scope, no? So, marapat lamang na ito ay bibigyan ng ganitong function na makapag-conduct din ng forums, consultations, involving issues that really affect the co-ops, no, in the Philippines. But the exercise of this function, however, is subject to the permission of the authority, no? Pag mag-conduct ng mga ganitong activities ang NAC, at lalong-lalo na yung pagpokolekta ng fees in connection with the conduct of the said forums, consultations, and other activities. Okay, next please. Okay. Among its functions is to submit to the authority reports on every activity conducted or participated. So the NAC is required to inform the authority of each and every activity conducted by it or participated by it, so that the authority will also be posted or updated of what the NAC has been engaging in. Okay. Next, to disseminate relevant information, engage in public relation activities in order to stress the significance and impact of cooperatives in the society and in the economy, and to encourage participation therein. Well, being the National Alliance of Co-ops, it is expected to spearhead the dissemination of cooperative information to really stress the importance of cooperatives in the society as well as in the economic or national development. Then another function is the function to adopt internal rules for the operation of the NAC, subject to the approval of the authority. So the NAC is authorized to formulate its own internal rules, but the said internal rules formulated by the NAC shall be approved by the authority. How will the NAC be organized? So the representatives of each recognized sectoral apex organization composing the NAC shall convene, and they shall elect from among themselves its officers and such other officers as may be necessary to carry out its functions. And in organizing the NAC, it will be the CDA head office through the board of directors that will supervise the said organizational meeting and election of its officers. Next, please. Okay. Talking about the term of office of the representatives of the National Alliance, the law or this circular gives them a term of 2 years within which to serve as representatives or officers thereof. The following are the requirements for the recognition of the National Alliance. First, the preparation of a letter request to be recognized as the National Alliance of Cooperatives. So this letter request has to be addressed to the CDA head office through the board of directors. Then the said letter request shall be supported by resolutions from the sectoral apex organizations, and the said resolutions shall clearly indicate the intention of the sectoral apex organizations to so recognize and commit to support the existing or the established National Alliance of Cooperatives. And another document that will support the request for recognition is the minutes of organizational meeting. So far, ito lang naman po ang mga kakailanganin para po mabigyan ng recognition ang National Alliance. Next, please. Okay, so after having satisfactorily complied with the requirements for recognition, a certificate of recognition shall then be issued by the CDA head office to the NAC. Okay. Now, please take note that the certificate of recognition serves merely as a proof of the recognition of the validity and existence of the said alliance of cooperatives, and it does not in any way bestow juridical personality upon the said National Alliance. Okay, let's move on to the composition of the sectoral apex organization. So, the sectoral apex organization shall be composed of one representative from each regional clustered organizations and representatives from each type of cooperative. So, sino-sino po itong mga type of co-ops na to na posibleng mabigyan ng seat or mabigyan ng slot para maging representatives doon sa sectoral apex organizations. The said types of cooperatives shall be subject to the determination and identification of the board of directors of the authority. And the composition of the SAO shall be subject also to automatic review after every 2 years. Next, please. So how many sectoral apex organizations will be organized for each clustered sector? So take note how we have 6 clustered sectors. So ilang apex organizations meron ang bawat cluster of co-ops? So there shall be 1 apex organization for each clustered sector. So ibig lang sabihin, suma total, merong ma-organize at ma-establish na 6 na sectoral apex organizations, each representing each cluster of co-ops. Next, please. What are then the functions of the SAO? Okay. First is to represent such cluster in the National Alliance of Cooperatives in the performance of the alliance role and functions. To promote and uphold the cooperative principles and values, again, that's very self-explanatory. To conduct forums, consultations, and such other necessary activities pertaining to the specific cluster, and to collect reasonable fees, therefore, as may be permitted by the authority. Okay, so that the SAO, just like the National Alliance, can perform its function well, being the consultative body of co-ops in the national level, no? It is authorized to conduct forums and consultations insofar as they are necessary, immediate, and relevant to the emerging issues affecting the co-ops within the said cluster. But just like the NAC, its authority to collect reasonable fees for the conduct of the forums shall be as allowed by the authority. Okay. The SAO is also required to submit to the authority reports on every activity conducted or participated, so as to apprise the authority of what the SAO has been doing. No? Next, to make policy proposals and to engage in negotiations to protect members' livelihoods, jobs, and local communities. And the last one is to adopt internal rules for the operation of the SAO subject to the approval of the authority. Okay, so those are the functions of the sectoral apex organizations. Next, please. So, how will the SAO be organized? The organization of the sectoral apex organization, as well as the election of representatives and officers, shall be conducted under the supervision of the CTA head office. And it shall be spearheaded by the cluster head. The representatives of each recognized RCO and from each type of cooperatives that will be identified by the authority will have to be participants of the said organizational meeting, as they are the ones comprising or composing the sectoral apex organization. Okay. So the members of the SAO shall convene and elect from among themselves its officers and such other officers as may be necessary to carry out the functions of the SAO. Okay. Just like the officers and representatives of the National Alliance of Co-ops, said representatives and officers of the SAO shall also serve a term of 2 years. What are the requirements for the recognition of the SAO? So the following documentary requirements include, again, kailangan lang po ng letter request to be recognized as SAO. And that will be addressed again to the CDA head office. No? Then resolution from each regional clustered organization signifying its recognition and commitment to support the SAO. And the minutes of organizational meeting. Next, please. So after having satisfactorily complied with the documentary requirements, a certificate of recognition shall then be issued to the sectoral apex organizations. Next, please. Okay. Then the last level of consultative body of co-ops, no? The regional clustered organizations or RCOs. So its composition is mandated in this manner, no, pursuant to this memorandum circular. So there shall be automatic membership of all qualified primary cooperatives, federations of cooperatives to the cluster based on their authorized business activities in their articles of cooperation. With respect to unions, the unions in the regions shall join the education and advocacy cluster. However, if it is a sectoral cooperative union, then it shall only join the cluster where the sector belongs and not to the education and advocacy cluster. Next, please. Okay. So the RCOs shall be composed of one authorized representative from each of the cooperatives to the concerned cluster. Okay. Cooperatives whose area of operation is national or interregional shall join in the region or in the regional cluster organization where the principal office of the said cooperative is located. Kasi alam naman natin yung ating mga kooperatiba, maaring national or interregional ang scope ng operation. So for proper guidance, no, itong mga kooperatiba na to shall join the regional clustered organization where their respective principal offices are located. Next. What about the multipurpose cooperatives? Saang RCO sila dapat umani, no, or sumali? So, based on this memorandum circular, said multipurpose cooperatives may join more than one cluster, depending on the business activities they are engaged in. So, reference will be the articles of cooperation of the said multipurpose cooperatives to determine the authorized business activities. So how many regional clustered organizations shall be organized per region? So there shall be 6 regional clustered organizations for every region. So representing each of the 6 cluster of cooperatives. The regional clustered organization shall perform the following functions. First, to represent in the sectoral apex organization the clusters in the region. Second is to promote and uphold the cooperative principles and values. And this level of consultative body of co-ops is also authorized to conduct forums, consultations, and other necessary activities pertaining to the cluster in the region and to collect reasonable fees therefore, as may be permitted by the authority. Okay. The regional clustered organization shall likewise be required to submit to the authority reports on every activity conducted or participated. And the last one is to make policy proposals and engage in negotiations to protect members' livelihoods, jobs, and local communities. Next, please. How will the RCO be organized? So, the organizational meeting of the regional clustered organization shall be under the supervision of the CDA regional office. The authorized representative from each of the cooperatives to the concerned cluster shall convene and elect among themselves the representatives to the RCO and such other officers as may be necessary to carry out the functions of the RCO. Now, the representatives of multi-purpose cooperatives to the south can only be elected as officers in the cluster where they have their main line of business. So, hindi po posible or pwedeng maging officers ang representatives ng mga multi-purpose cooperatives in more than one cluster, but only in the cluster where they have their main line of business. Next, please. Okay, so the officers and representatives of the regional clustered organization shall serve a term of 2 years. So in order to be recognized as the regional clustered organization, the following documentary requirements shall be submitted to the authority. First is the letter request to be recognized as the regional clustered organization and the minutes of organizational meeting. After having submitted and satisfactorily complied with such documentary requirements, issuance of a certificate of recognition shall follow. Who are qualified to become members of the regional clustered organizations? No? Lahat ba agad ng co-op na nag-ooperate sa bawat region? Automatic na maging miyembro sa bawat regional clustered organizations? Well, here are the qualifications. First, the co-op must be a duly registered cooperative issued with a certificate of compliance. So, only compliant cooperatives can become members of the RCOs. And another qualification is that each and every co-op must be operating for at least 2 years. So these are the 2 important qualifications for co-ops to become members of the RCOs. Okay. Now, talking about the administration of each of the said organizations, no, meron ding tinatawag na General Assembly, which refers to the full membership of the body of representatives elected by the National Alliance, Sectoral Apex Organization, and Cluster Organization, respectively, duly assembled for the purpose of exercising such powers and functions as prescribed by the authority and in accordance with the Manual of Operations prepared and implemented by each of these organizations. Who are the elective officers of each of the said organizations? Okay, let's get to know them. So, the following are the elective officers of each of the said organizations. Okay. Meron pong, next please, president, may vice president, then representatives, except for the National Alliance kasi yun na nga po yung nasa pinakatuktok, pinakamataas na organization of co-ops, the secretary, and the treasurer. Okay, the enumeration of the said elective officers is not exclusive. Kasi nabanggit nga po kanina, each of these organizations is authorized to elect such other officers as may be necessary in the conduct of its affairs or of its operation, no? So ito po yung mga elective officers. Now, the principle of gender balance shall be observed in the election of representatives in the RCOs, the SAOs, as well as in the National Alliance. Okay, how will each representative vote? And how many votes will each representative be entitled to? So each representative shall have only one vote. That's a basic principle actually in the cooperative, no? So one man, one vote. And here, voting by proxy shall not be allowed. And the voting shall be done through secret balloting. What are the qualifications of a representative, whether it be in the NAC, in the SAO, or in the RCO? Kailangan po Filipino citizen and of legal age, must have a proven track record in co-op management, must not hold any government position, whether appointed or elective. So wala pong wala pong pwedeng gawing representative sa alinmang organization na to na isang co-op officer na active din sa serbisyo sa gobyerno. Okay, so disqualified po. Must not have been sanctioned by the authority for violation of this memorandum circular. Okay, so walang bahid ng paglabag sa issuance na ito ng CDA and must be willing and able to participate in all activities on a voluntary basis. Ito po ay mahalaga talaga. Voluntaryong serbisyo. Okay. Now, once madetermina na po kung sino po yung mga nanalong officers ng mga organizations na to, after tallying the votes, the authority shall then act as secretariat and thereby proclaim the winners in the election of officers of the said organizations. Now, here in these organizations, the principle of accountability is likewise established. So, sabi nga po, every responsibility has an accompanying accountability. So, the elective officers shall be accountable for their actions to the respective organization and to the members as well. So, here, in this kind of setup, no, all issues and concerns that may be raised by any member of the organization should be ventilated within the organization. What will be the rule to be observed or to follow in case of vacancy in an elective office? Now, should a vacancy occur in the elective office and the reason for the said vacancy is other than the expiration of term. So, ibig sabihin, merong namatay, merong naging incapacitated, merong nag-resign. So, yung vacancy na yon must be filled by the vote of at least a majority of the remaining elective officers. Kung majority pa yung number ng natirang elective officers, so sila-sila din lang mismo ang pipili. And if they still constitute a quorum, so pwede na nilang fill upan yung nabakanteng office. Otherwise, The vacancy must be filled by the General Assembly in a meeting called for the purpose. But the successor or the officer elected to fill the vacancy shall only serve, of course, the unexpired term of his predecessor in office. The following are the strict prohibitions that must be observed by each of these organizations. No? So what are the prohibited acts? First, it shall be prohibited for each of these organizations to undertake fundraising and or income generating activities, because that is not exactly the purpose for which each of these organizations is established. So hindi para lumikom ng pondo. So prohibited po yan. Another is to register with any government agency that grants juridical personality. So, ito pong ating regional clustered organizations, sectoral apex organizations, at pati na ang NAC shall exist and will remain to exist only as such, without juridical personality, but will only obtain recognition from the CDA. And they are prohibited from registering from any government agency for the purpose of obtaining juridical personality. Okay. Another is the prohibition against receiving grants, donations, and subsidies from local and foreign sources. And the last one is the prohibition against engaging in any activities other than those allowed by the law and its IRR, as well as in this memorandum circular. Okay, what will happen? What will be the consequences if at any time there is a violation committed against the provisions of this memorandum circular? Well, the commission of the said violation by any officer or representative of each of these organizations shall be a ground for removal as officer or representative of the NAC, SAO, or RCO, as the case may be, but such removal shall be done only after due process has been observed. Well, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Once again, good morning and beautiful day to everyone.
Although the law, the RA number 11364, makes mention only of the power of the CDA to recognize the National Alliance of Cooperatives as well as the Sectoral Apex organizations, there is nothing that prohibits the CDA from organizing and recognizing a consultative body of cooperatives within the regional level. The provision of the law on the recognition of the National Alliance and the Sectoral Apex organizations is one kind of provision which is general by itself, such that there is a need to spell out the operational details, or that standards be clearly defined in the IRR for a proper and effective implementation of the law. Kaya naisipan po ng CDA na dapat meron ding mechanism na ma-create muna sa region para po lalong masystematize yung consultative body or coordinating body of cooperatives. Alam naman po natin na meron din pong mga issues affecting co-ops that are peculiar only within the region. So, in that case, ang maaaring tumugon sa mga issues na to ay itong mekanismong ito, ang mga regional clustered organizations. At pag meron din po tayong ganitong mekanismo sa ating mga regions, madidetermina din po natin ng maayos kung sino-sino po yung mga mapipili nating representatives na siyang bubuo po sa ating sectoral apex organizations at lalong-lalo na ng ating National Alliance of Cooperatives. So, CDA is not prohibited from providing for the creation and recognition of regional clustered organizations. ito rin naman po talaga ang function ng pagkakaroon ng IRR. Para po mabigyang linaw, makumpleto kung ano man yung nakaligtaan or kulang doon mismo sa batas. So kaya po natin itong ginagawa, ang pag-create at pag-recognize ng mga RCOs. Alam naman po natin na ang purpose ng pag-organize at pag-recognize ng National Alliance of Cooperatives ay upang magkaroon ng isang organisasyon or alyansa ng mga kooperatiba na binubuo actually nitong tinatawag nating 6 major clusters ng co-ops para po masiguro na ang boses ng lahat ng types at categories ng kooperatiba ay marirepresenta nitong tinatawag nating National Alliance of Cooperatives. Pero bago po tayo makabuo ng alyansa, kinakailangan po muna na merong mabubuong organisasyon sa regional levels at pati na rin po sa national level. So, meron po tayong regional clustered organizations, then yung sectoral apex organizations, and then finally, yung National Alliance of Cooperatives. So, lahat po ng kooperatiba ang rehistrado po sa CDA ay nire-require po talaga na umanig po dito, maging miyembro po dito sa regional clustered organizations kung kayo po ay napabilang dito base po sa nakasaad sa ating IRR na kung saan in-identify kung sino ang dapat na makasama dito as members, pati na rin po sa ating sectoral apex organizations. So ito po ay mahalagang oportunidad para sa inyo na mapabilang sa mga organisasyong ito para maisiguro po na ang inyong interest at welfare ay talaga pong marepresentahan ng mga nasabing organisasyon. At lalong-lalo na po ng National Alliance of Cooperatives.
Ito po ang kabuuan ng presentation ni Atty. Mona po. Sana ay marami po kayong napulot na impormasyon kung paano po ito ibubuo hanggang sa national galing sa region. So kung hindi po malinaw sa inyo at meron po kayong mga katanungan, ay open kami sa pagtanggap ng inyong mga ibang suggestion, clarification. Sulat lang ulit again dyan sa ating comment box para po ito ay makarating kaagad sa amin. At sinisigurado ko po na ito ay aming tutugunan. Kung gusto nyo pong personal kayong malinawan, mag-iwan po kayo ng inyong number para po matawagan namin kayo at para ma-clear. Kasi ang gusto po namin talaga ay maliwanag na makarating sa inyo ang implementasyon ng CDA. Again po, sa mga hindi pa po nag-subscribe, please subscribe po, like and share dito sa ating YouTube channel para po mas marami pang makakaalam sa mga ginagawa ng CDA at eventually kung anong mga ginagawa ng sektor. So aasahan po namin kayo at sa mga susunod pa naming mga video na ipapalabas at sa mga impormasyon, asahan namin ang inyong laging pagsuporta. Salamat at magandang araw po.